Hey there, Damon DeMarco here for CreateX3.com. Today's topic, dark mentors in storytelling. Today's episode could be called When Mentors Go Bad. Film at 11. What is a dark mentor? What purpose do they serve? If you're someone like me who writes novels, stage plays, screenplays, and TV pilots, stories in other words, stay tuned. You'll see why adding one of these intriguing characters to your story can really kick things up a notch. But before we go any further, please hit subscribe. Ring the bell and that'll give you notifications of whenever I drop a new video, which is basically once a week. Also, huge announcement. We just launched our weekly newsletter. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's called Create-a-thon. Now you can get quick, interesting articles on how to develop and maintain and hone your creativity right in your email box every single week, and it is totally for free. I mean, what could be better than that? Signing up is easy. Just go to CreateX3.com and there's going to be a little pop-up thing. See it right there on the screen? And all you have to do is put in your email address and that's it. You're on the mailing list. Okay. So let's get to it. The mentor is one of the most powerful archetypes in storytelling. I don't know why my hand just came up like that. It's very dramatic. Think of Merlin coaching King Arthur, or Gandalf guiding the Fellowship of the Ring. Jiminy Cricket helping Pinocchio decide between what's right and what's wrong. Cinderella had her fairy godmother. Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are all fine examples of mentors in storytelling. A hero's mentor basically explains the state of the world to the young, untutored hero. A hero's mentor often explains the state of the world, why things are the way they are, why there is a need for a quest, and the best way to pull it off. Frequently, the mentor is wiser than the hero is and older. Also, the mentor frequently bestows gifts upon the hero. For instance, Obi-Wan Kenobi gave Luke Skywalker his father's lightsaber. Or think about the weapons master Q in all of the James Bond films. Q gives James Bond all these crazy devices that always seem to save his life at a moment when it seems certain that he's in the most peril. Batman has Alfred, who always gives, at least in the later incarnations of Batman, the latest films, he always gives Batman a new bat stuff. The Olympian gods gave the hero Perseus many gifts. They gave him a shiny shield that he could use to look at so that he didn't look directly into the Gorgon's glare, which would turn him to stone. They gave him a sword. They gave him the winged shoes of Mercury that allowed him to run and fly at the same time. They gave him a bag that could hold pretty much everything. Perseus was like one of those heroes who got all of these gifts from all of his mentors, who also happened to be divinity. Less talked about is the fact that a mentor usually functions as a hero's conscience in many ways. Whenever the hero needs it most, the mentor is there to guide the hero and say, have you thought about this? Or no, don't do that. Many times the hero doesn't exactly take this advice seriously, but that's still part of the mentor's function. They remind the hero of what they most need to embody in terms of their behavior, their characteristics, their integrity. So, what happens when the mentor goes dark? I want to do it again. Goes dark. That's so awesome. Dark mentors, also called anti-mentors, not to be confused with antimatter. Anti-mentors or evil mentors, they abound all throughout literature and storytelling. They do. And they are some of the most arguably compelling characters in storytelling. I think so. What do you think? Let's check out a few examples. By the way, if you're interested in storytelling, I'd made a fantastic online course for writers that kind of breaks down the storytelling process that I use in all of the novels, screenplays, stage plays, and television pilots that I write. It works, and that's why I want to give it to you, so you can always check it out. Here's a link for it right up here. It's called Break Your Story, which is an industry term, but you'll learn more about it. Just go to the website. You'll read about it. It's fantastic. People say great things about it. Check it out. Dark mentors are characters who pose as compassionate, wise, guiding figures, but they're not always. And that's where things get really, really weird, is that sometimes they are, and the hero can rely upon them, but then sometimes they do stuff that's like, oh my god, no, that's not right. That's not right at all. There's something totally screwed up about that. That's why they're intriguing characters. They're very, very complicated. Sometimes dark mentors actually lead the hero down the path to his or her destruction, which is obviously, it's not good, man. No. So, like I said, let's look at some examples. Let's look at 3 examples. One of my favorite dark mentors is the character of Alonzo Harris, played by Denzel Washington in the movie Training Day. Screenplayed by David Ayer, directed by Antoine Fuqua. In this movie, rookie narcotics detective Jake Hoyt, played by Ethan Hawke, gets paired with a veteran narc whose methods are, well, they're pretty despicable, but effective. And again, that's where things get very, very confusing. Alonzo Harris has spent so long combating the drug-infested streets of LA, there's no longer a line between him and the criminals he's trying to defeat. Nietzsche once said that if you stare into the abyss stares back at you. It's that kind of relationship. Basically, it's hard to tell if Alonzo Harris is one of the good guys or one of the bad guys. Good cop, bad cop, you know that thing? Alonzo Harris could be both. At least in the beginning he seems that way, but then he does drugs. He uses a fake search warrant to steal money. He seizes $4 million in drug money, and he ends up keeping a substantial portion of that. Jake Hoyt protests this behavior. Even though he knows that Alonzo is making him a tougher, more resilient cop, better at his job, he still has to draw the line someplace. In the end, Jake finds out that Alonzo has actually set him up to be killed. Now that's something that a lot of mentors don't do. They usually don't kill their charges. Now the end of Training Day is something to see. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm just not going to say anything more, because if you haven't seen the movie yet, that's part of your homework. You should run right out and go see that. If you consider yourself a storyteller, you got to take in the stories and get them in here. For now, you should just know that Alonzo Harris is so compelling because not only does he fulfill the mentor archetype, right, in storytelling, but he also fulfills the antagonist archetype. He is the hero's antagonist and mentor at the same time, which is paradoxical and antithetical and extremely compelling. He's also a shapeshifter, which is another great archetype detailed in Christopher Vogler's great book on storytelling. It's sort of a distillation of Joseph Campbell's work on the hero's journey. I'll put a link to it down here in the comments below. If you haven't read this book and you consider yourself a storyteller, read it. So, example number 2 of a dark mentor, another one of my absolute favorite roles in one of my absolute favorite stories of all time, Tyler Durden in Fight Club. Book by Chuck Palahniuk, screenplay by Jim Ulls, directed by David Fincher. Please tell me you've seen this or read it. You should do both, by the way. One day, this poor slob of an office worker, played by Edward Norton, meets a charismatic soap salesman, Tyler Durden, played by Brad Pitt. Durden starts out as kind of a cooler, older brother to Edward Norton's, kind of nebbishy office guy. He teaches Norton to embrace his wild, primal dark side. As a result, Norton's character starts getting into fights. He becomes very disagreeable, abrasive even, uncompromising, uncouth, and consequently, more powerful. Fun fact, psychologically, when we embrace our shadow selves, we release a great deal of hidden interpersonal power. I should do a video on that at some point, shouldn't I? I should totally do a video on that. It's pretty good stuff. If you want me to do a video on that, just leave a comment down below and I'll do that. Okay, thanks. So it turns out that everything's going swimmingly for Edward Norton's character until he founds Fight Club, which is this sort of underground, no-holds-barred boxing club where young men kick the crap out of each other because the world sucks and they gotta let it out someplace. This, as entertaining as it is, morphs very quickly. Fight Club becomes something called Project Mayhem, which is basically a terrorist organization that wants to blow the world back to the Stone Age. And who's behind it all? Who keeps pushing Edward Norton's character to do this? You got it. Tyler Durden. So again, Durden starts out as someone who seems to have his charges' best interests in mind, but he ends up being something completely different. Again, if you haven't seen this movie or read the book, I'm not going to say anything further. You must go out and digest this. It's part of your education as a storyteller, okay? So go, do that. I'll wait. I'll wait right here. Are you back yet? Did you see it? Did you read it? Okay, good. Great ending, right? I mean, like, mind-numbing ending. Like, who knew? That twist. Who knew? Dark Mentor example number 3. Television's The Blacklist. The character of Raymond Reddington, played incongruously by James Spader. Raymond Reddington is a highly intelligent, deeply manipulative former intelligence officer turned murderer, crime lord, and sociopath, but he's got a heart of gold. Sometimes. In some ways, he's a lot like Hannibal Lecter. He's this criminal who begins to instruct an FBI agent, and so he becomes this weird force in that female FBI agent's life. Reddington guides his FBI trainee Elizabeth Keene to capture some of the world's most ruthless criminals, most of which are his former colleagues, and most of which he wants to take down for his own reasons, which are sometimes altruistic and sometimes not. I gotta tell you, I have a lot of admiration for this series. I mean, at core, it's formulaic, it's procedural, it's what you'd expect, I think, from an hour-long network television thriller. But the writing, the acting, the overall arc of the story, it's very, very, very compelling. If you haven't seen it, watch the first couple of seasons. It'll go just like that, believe me. And you'll get the sense of it right away. How this dark mentor figure is not just pivotal to the story, it is the story. The entire story is basically built around the mystery of who is Raymond Reddington? What's he really up to? How is he trying to influence events? It's brilliant. Hard to beat that kind of entertainment. Spader's Remington is so compelling because nobody can put a finger on him. Nobody knows what he's doing from one moment to the next. Even when he does something right in front of your face, you really have no idea what it really means until later. I would even go so far as to call him the ultimate shapeshifter. You see, there it is again. I've got to do like an entire video now on shapeshifters, don't I? Okay, that's another one. If you wanted me to do a video on shadow power, conquering the shadow and all of that, leave a note in the comments below. And if you want me to do one on the shapeshifter archetype, which is fantastic, you can leave a note there too, okay? So what's the bottom line? Dark mentors can be funny, they can be savvy, they can be charismatic, they can be sexy. They basically are human beings with the volume turned way, way up. In other words, they can be very, very good at times. And then at other times, they can do things that just make you go, huh? How good? Huh? One moment they're completely narcissistic, and the other they're magnanimous. The common denominator is that the hero is always caught in between. The hero must decide where they place the limits on the Dark Mentor's behavior. Are they going to follow the Dark Mentor into, well, the darkness, over the edge into the abyss? Or are they going to pull back at some point and establish for themselves, and of course by doing so, the reader and the audience, where the limits lie in terms of a person's integrity, in terms of their behavior, in terms of what they're willing to commit to, how far they're willing to go in order to secure a positive outcome to their quest. If this archetype is done right, if you craft it correctly, it's almost impossible for people to stop reading about them. It's almost impossible for people to stop watching them. So if you're crafting a story right now, you might want to consider throwing one of these archetypes in there just to spice things up. And again, if you're interested in storycraft, I'll put a link up. It's either here. I'll put it down also in the descriptions here where you can see my Break Your Story course, which talks about a lot of this stuff. It's very, very important stuff for storytellers to have a firm grasp of these techniques before you go about writing your novel, screenplay, stage play, or television pilot in any genre. The technique works for all of that. Questions, comments, keep them coming. We love to have them. And again, sign up for our newsletter at createx3.com. Thank you so much for coming by and spending some time with me. Again, my name is Damon DeMarco for createx3.com. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay creative.